everyone, it is time for this update, and I have been putting this off for months. At first it was just like, oh, I gotta wait till I go to the surgeon to see the update and I'll include it then. Then it became the rheumatologist, all this stuff. And finally I was like, you know what, it's been almost 6 months, give or take, since I've done any sort of update. And I just wanted to let any of you who are still following along this journey with me know what's been happening. So I'm gonna cover last year, then I'm gonna be talking about what the upcoming plans are for this year and some really exciting things happening. So hopefully you guys stick around to hear that. So just a little recap of last year. I was recovering from hip surgery. The first couple months were going great with lifting, and I was getting my strength back. Then when I went to help my grandma with the fence, I injured my psoas, and it ended up causing a lot of problems with my back. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars going to chiropractors trying to get this fixed so that I could train for the strongman contest that I had signed up for. And just when it was starting to get better, I was building a Ninja Warrior course for my son, and when I was coming off a ladder, I fell and messed up my already injured ankle. So I had previously done an MRI on my ankle, and I've torn every single ligament in the right ankle. There are bone spurs, it didn't heal correctly, and I already had limited range of motion. However, unlike previous times that I've injured the ankle, this time it hasn't healed. And it's agony to lean forward on the heel. I have very, very limited range of motion, and I was going to a surgeon, and they were like, we don't know. We don't know whether or not you're gonna get any sort of improvement in this. I talked to my doctor, and he said, maybe an entire ankle replacement or a bone fusion, but then if I do either of those, it's gonna limit lifting, and it's just, you know what, I don't wanna do it right now. And last year, on top of all of that, my rheumatoid arthritis has come out of remission, so I'm dealing with that. Had a new rheumatologist, had some positive news at first. He thought I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis, that I had palindromic rheumatism instead, which is better. But come to find out, no, he was wrong. I do have rheumatoid arthritis, so I had to start this new medication. That medication's been causing stomach issues, so then I just had an endoscopy, I think that's how you pronounce it, where they take the camera down to see what's wrong with my stomach. I have to start taking Prilosec, but a prescription grade of it, and it's just kind of been all this stuff. And then on top of all of that, last year after the strongman contest, I didn't wait long enough for recovery. I helped my parents move. I don't know exactly what I did, but I injured my left bicep tendon. So it was actually the lower insertion point was messed up and the upper. So I wasn't able to do any sort of pressing, any sort of rowing, and I didn't even deadlift because that upper bicep, I was just like, don't want to mess with it. So that was the end of August, and I was trying to do squats, some leg curls, leg extensions, and I just decided, you know what, I'm taking the rest of the year off. I just want to get this recovered. And I had lost 40 pounds, so anybody that was following along with the diet progress, it was going great. But the whole point of the diet was to be able to do Ninja Warrior with my son and compete at a lower weight class in strongman. And with the arm, I was like, I can't do either. And it was going into winter, so I wasn't gonna be able to do Ninja Warrior. So I made the decision, which looking back on it was probably a mistake, to stop dieting and start eating at a small surplus to give my body enough calories to focus on recovering the shoulder. So I didn't lift for several months. I started very light again in February, and the upper part of my shoulder where the bicep goes is fine now, but the lower part, still having issues with that. I've had to adjust multiple grips with that. And I started training, started getting stronger, and I made the decision this year, I wanted to compete in Masters. I turned 40 in June this year, but the competition I want to do, they're done. They said there's no more competitions happening in August. So I looked and I found 2 competitions. One's in June, 2 days before my birthday. So I don't get to compete in Masters. I contacted them. I said, hey, it's 2 days before my birthday. Can I compete in Masters? And they kind of like, we don't know. And I said, if it helps, I've felt like I've been 40 since 2018. That didn't win them over. And then I've got one in July. So the biggest thing with this prep is I don't want a repeat of last year. I don't want to get injured. So my weight's way up. I've basically regained all of the weight, the 40 pounds that I had lost. And I was in contact with somebody, and this is kind of the big news for me. His name is Clint Darden. For those of you who are not aware, he has been on YouTube for years. He is one of the first two people that I started watching. I had a lot of health problems. I had multiple back injuries, and I went to a chiropractor, and they told me that I needed to start lifting weights. And that was the only way my back was going to get better. It was so atrophied that they said I was going to be in pain for the rest of my life. And from stress from work and ulcers, I had gained 100 pounds, and it was just agony to be alive. And I started looking like how to do exercises. And Clinton Darden was one of the channels that I had found. He has a gym, the House of Biceps. And I was watching him. He did all these tutorials like how to lift, his training, and he was going through all sorts of problems. He has his own autoimmune disease that he has to deal with, and countless injuries. And it really shaped how I organize my own program. Granted, he uses way more bands and chains and cool stuff than I do, and he does some equipped lifting and stuff. But I've been watching him since I started lifting back in 2010. And last year, I had reached out to him, and he is one of the nicest, most helpful people I've ever come across. And I said, hey, I don't have any idea how to train with a Fingal's finger. I don't have an implement. And he took the time out of his day to send me a list of like, this is the stuff I would do. And we did it. And hey, I managed to do the Fingal's finger. So this year I was talking to him about coming back and like if he had any tips for me to avoid re-injuring myself. And he actually opened up a coaching spot for me, which was really cool. So I signed up with him, and that's what these week 1 through week 4 videos have been about. I am talking with him, and I've set him all of my goals, what I want to accomplish this year, with the emphasis on making sure I don't re-injure myself, the contest, what the implements are and everything. And so he's designing my programming, and I'm recording those videos with the highlights of the lifts, trying to keep them as close to 3 minutes as possible so that he can review it, give me tips on form, see the rate of perceived exertion, RPE, and determine whether or not I need to increase weights, decrease weights, all of that stuff, keeping an eye on my recovery. And so it's kind of a cool process because I'm working with somebody that I've looked up to and admired for a long time and has had a really big impact on really at this point my life. And seeing him struggle through stuff, especially when I got the rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis, and like I couldn't use my hand or I couldn't use my shoulder, and I was watching him, like he has a video where he actually had to duct tape his hand to a log to be able to press. And sometimes when I'm just like, man, I don't want to do anything, I'll watch one of his videos and be like, all right, you know what? He did it. So let's pull that energy. Sometimes I don't succeed, but that's it's been a big thing that I try and do. And so like this shirt right here, I don't know if you can see it. Stand up. So it says, fueled by arthritis and ambition, House of Biceps. That's one of his shirts. And I've been wearing a hoodie for years and years. So it's just a cool thing for me. So that's the big thing coming over this summer. The first contest, as I said, is in June. The second one's in July. I'm going to be training for those. And then, this is where everything turns. In August, I'm already planning for it, I'm going to start dieting again. So I'm not really happy that I let myself gain all that weight back. It was really a dumb decision. I am glad that my shoulder's healed. So there's pros, but I got to lose that 40 pounds again and then some more. But the goal for this year after August is to diet down. I'm going to start the weekly Wednesday weigh-in stuff again, probably, or it might be monthly. I don't want to just be spending all my time making videos, and I am training 4 times a week right now. And then next year, we're going to start training for a competition a little bit earlier, and the goal is, now that I'm a master's, to be able to start working at something that I haven't even had the goal, but since I've accomplished my next one, the goal is to place top 3 in a master's competition, which would be really cool. But I've got a long ways to go, and then losing that weight is going to help significantly. And I am going to be having a video Probably next month, going over the Ninja Warrior course, everything that we've done. So we've got all of the framework done, the salmon ladders done. We got some cool galvanized posts, and I'll show you a couple of things that's going to use. But the back half of the course, what I'm going to do is design it to be customizable and movable. And it's just one of those things where, man, okay, the only day I have to work on stuff right now is Wednesday. So I've got to coordinate with my son, and he's been working out with me, setting new PRs and everything. But when Wednesday comes around, like this past Wednesday, we had bad windstorms, took out 5 of my fence posts. So I was sitting out there like, okay, don't mess up your psoas. And I'm just very carefully shoveling like, don't do anything bad. And, so far so good, no injuries. So we got those fence post report fixed. Yeah, they're all repaired. And I'm looking forward to being able to finish up that Ninja Warrior course for him. Although, let's be honest, right now, I am just far too heavy to be able to do anything on that. But if you have any questions or any words of encouragement or anything like that, let me know. Thank you all for checking in. Go lift something heavy.